Hello, my name is James McMicken, and this is my professional reflection over the EDS 8845 course. Some key takeaways that I wanted to emphasize from this course were the need for collecting student data, the learner profile, such as the information that makes it up, such as thinking styles, preferences, background, interests, differentiation of the environment, the process, the product, and tiered instruction. I really liked a lot of aspects of this course as I've done some of these things in the past, but I've never really implemented them in a uniform or consistent manner. And actually, the need for collecting student data was something that I've done before, but I've never collected data regarding thinking styles and preferences. I would always ask students about their interests and their hobbies, and I would try to use those to make connections to curriculum material, but I've never actually planned with those things in mind, mainly because the school that I teach in is a academic recovery program, and so we use Edgenuity as our key curricular source. So we haven't been able to differentiate as much, but in the coming year, we'll be making more adjustments and creating our own curriculums that students will use as opposed to just Edgenuity. So I found this course really interesting because I've learned all these things at a time when I'll actually be able to start implementing them in a more meaningful way. As it is, currently I've been able to differentiate the environment, some aspects of the process, and at times I've been able to give students options as far as the product goes. Tiered instruction is one of the areas that I have not been able to use quite as much, mainly because most of our students have come to us struggling academically, and so we don't usually have students who are at the higher end of the spectrum as far as gifted students. I've had one or two, and in those instances I have been able to give supplemental material. But as far as giving tiered material using Edgenuity, it's essentially kind of across the board. All students get the same thing. However, because we are going to start creating our own resources, tiered instruction was something that I also found very fascinating. So as I mentioned before, student data is something that I have collected in the past, but I've not thought of it in terms of thinking styles and preferences or intelligences. Typically, I've looked at interests, such as hobbies, extracurricular activities, and in some ways it does align with preferences when students tell me that they're artistic, or they like to read, or that they're good at drawing, or they like movies, because then I know if they're visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. But again, as far as Edgenuity goes, we don't have a lot of room to manipulate those types of parameters. So when I've been able to differentiate using student data, it's been through supplemental material. Also, as far as cultural background, this is something that we haven't talked about as much in our program. We have started offering a program for our newcomer students, and so those are students who are ELL, and they are taken to a different portion of the building. However, as far as cultural backgrounds, this was important to me because sometimes Edgenuity will make references to things that students are not familiar with, or they'll talk about tools that even though I'm used to using tools, for instance, if they're talking about simple machines in physical science, some of our students really don't have any experience with tools such as hammers or axes, or levers or things like that. So I have to actually give some sort of background on things that to me seem relevant to my everyday life, but they've not really had to come in contact with any of those things. And socioeconomic status, again, because the course is kind of taught across the board to everyone in the same way, this hasn't come up as an issue as of yet, but it would be useful for me to know as far as what resources they have at home, because most of our material is available online. When students don't have access to the internet or a computer at home, this obviously puts them in a more difficult position than some of our other students who do have those resources. So in some cases, we have to make more allowances for time to be spent at school, such as giving them time afterwards to catch up on things if they need to, because they may not have access to the material at home. Or again, if there are examples of things that they may not know about because they come from a different socioeconomic background than other people or the people who made the courses. That is good to know. And so all that material comes together and we use it to create a learner profile. And I thought that, again, was a fascinating approach to actually compiling that data in a meaningful way. And I thought about this, it's important because when we know who we are teaching, we can plan for how to teach them. And again, this is something that I've done, outside of the academic arena as far as like coaching Little League soccer or things like that, understanding that, students come to me with different levels of knowledge and skill. And once I kind of assess where they are, I've been able to coach them in a much more meaningful way. But I haven't always attached that to my teaching practice, and I realized that this is an area of which I've really been struggling, but I've actually found this to be kind of an inspiring aspect of a differentiation. So currently I've done some changes to my environment. Before the COVID-19 protocols, I did allow students to sit wherever they wanted to as far as choice at one point. By allowing them to have more choice, it did give them more freedom, but I did have to manage, more instances of student behavior. And so at another point, I would actually group them by subject. And so in my class, I have to teach multiple subjects in the same classroom. So I'll have students doing physical science, earth systems, chemistry. But then I also have electives such as foreign languages or CTAE electives. And so I found that grouping them by subject put them in a much more practical arrangement in the class. But aside from seating, because that wasn't really something I could change very much with the protocols in place this semester, I did allow students to stand if needed. I implemented a standing desk for myself several years ago, as I do have some students who are more active, and so that is an option I provide to students. We also have a career center, which is our old media center, but it has standing benches for students to work at if they would like to go there, and so sometimes I'll take my class down there just to give them a change of scenery and a change of seating. Other times this semester we've gone to the courtyard because some students like to learn outside and they prefer, just getting a different view of the school. And so I have found a lot of useful benefit of using the courtyard, and because all our material is used through access through laptops, it's much easier to do a class out there than it is probably for more traditional teachers. And most of my students do like a moderately quiet environment, but I do have some soft music playing, which they've said does help kind of break up the monotony of the day, so that way they're not just sitting in a completely quiet classroom all day. As far as differentiating the process, I have been able to modify the pacing for my students. So because they do learn independently, the pace at which they receive the material is determined by the starting and end dates that I give them. And for students who are comfortable with the material, I will give a much more rigorous pace. Students who need more time, I will lessen the pace for them. But if they do hit a section of material that they are able to excel in and they speed up, then again, I will adjust the pace for that as well. But this allows me to give them an idea of when they will finish the course, and once they have a better idea of when they'll cross the finish line, they're much more apt to continue working diligently. The format, because it is digital predominantly, I do have some students who do not like that format, and so this semester I started creating text-based versions of the course. So I took the transcripts from the courses and all the screenshots of any images they used or charts, PowerPoints, etc. And I actually created a text-based version. Students can still access that text in a digital format, so they can zoom in or modify the document if they need to. I do provide students with guided notes, but they can also take notes digitally or in a notebook. The guided notes do just provide scaffolding, and it does help students who are watching the video stay engaged as they're able to fill in the notes as they go along. And so it does kind of tie them to the process more so than students who don't take notes. And also I've given students alternative or supplemental assignments. So sometimes students who are struggling on a certain topic, I'll give them like a simulation through PhET, which provides digital simulations. So one of the most common ones I've given is over atomic structure. As a lot of students who do struggle with atomic structure, they struggle because it's a more abstract concept. So by giving them a concrete manipulative that they can see change and how it affects, factors such as atomic weight, the placement of the electrons around the nucleus and so on, it does give them much more of a concrete visualization of a rather abstract concept. In product, again, one of our culminating things for the first unit is an atomic model that students will make. So I give them the option of making a 3D model. They can do a poster. They can make a digital presentation as far as a PowerPoint. Students have even, given me written descriptions of these things. So I try to, look at preferences as far as, allowing them to kind of come at this from a different way than just saying across the board they'll have to make a poster or they'll have to make a model. Again, they can usually work as an individual or a group. In my Earth Systems course, there's a unit over erosion. So again, students will they'll usually take a walk around the school or around their house, and they'll document evidence of erosion, and they give their feedback in the process of a presentation. Some have created an informational brochure or a poster. I've also had a lot of luck with doing a children's book option or a manga for students. So those are just like a Japanese comic. And students who are artistic do tend to like doing those types of things. So it gives them a way to teach the material to somebody at a lower grade level, but they can also use, their artistic abilities to highlight the types of processes and content that they're learning. And again, they're able to do this as an individual or as a group at times. Most of my students do prefer individual work. Occasionally, they will like to just work with a partner. And that is something I'm trying to work on as far as keeping students accountable. And for the most part, they have been, but I would like a more defined process for doing that and ensuring that work is equally shared. My goals for the next semester, as I said, are to create a curriculum that is designed to implement students' interests. This past semester, I had several students who tell me that they were interested in cosmetology, or becoming a firefighter, or automotive, and those are all concepts which do relate to physical science, but I was unable to create meaningful connections to that material for them. And so in the future, I plan to make sure that there is supplemental material that ties all these things to their interest and their career goals as much as possible. I would like to place more emphasis on the funds of knowledge or the background knowledge that my students bring. I've had many students who work different types of jobs, be it construction, restaurants, or even just their home life, the things that they're involved with, or they've done some science experiments that we haven't done in school. So I would like to invite students to bring more of their knowledge to the classroom. And again, I would also like to provide more opportunities for differentiation by product. As I mentioned before, I do this on some level, but this isn't really something I consistently do just because of the need for students currently to work through Edgenuity. And enable or to allow myself to do all these things, I need to implement more regular reflection on my current practices and look at areas that I can improve, and to look at my curriculum to see for areas which could be manipulated in order to give every student a more equitable chance to learn the material. As I said, we're going to start doing this more so in the next coming semester, and we will be allowed to move more away from Edgenuity. So I am excited about that. But overall, I really did learn a lot from this course. I've talked about or learned about differentiation in different contexts prior to this one, but this is the first course that I've actually had so many resources to choose from, and not just the amount of resources, but the quality of resources. They were all easy to implement, and so it was highly useful, and I was actually able to share a lot of these concepts with other teachers. So not only is it helping me, as a teacher learn to differentiate, but I feel like it's also helping me become a better teacher leader. So thank you for everything from this course, and that is the end of this presentation.